All right, welcome to the Sae Bae Cast number 6 with Manked. Manked, I am super excited for this. You're the first guest that's like a PKer, and a lot of the Sae Bae Cast fans are kind of excited for this. So I'm super excited, and let's get into it. So, Manked, would you introduce yourself, a little bit about you?
Hello. Okay, I'm Manked. I've played RuneScape, I would say, for about 16 years now. And I probably played a noob account when I started for about a month. I got hacked by my friend down the road, and then I've PK'd ever since then. So I literally made a PKing account, and I've literally PK'd for like 14, 15 years, I think. And only recently, well, 2 years ago, I made a hardcore Ironman to PK on that. I PK'd, I killed like 50 people on that account, I believe, and then it died to a power cut. So uh, I haven't played the Ironman much since then, but it got to 2K total, so I was super happy with it. But yeah, that's kind of a brief overview of me. I stream. I've streamed full time for 3 years now. I've done YouTube for like 10 years, but only done it full time on and off for like 2 years maybe. So yeah.
Okay, so I want to first get into the PvP Allstars that you won, and I want to say, like, I don't even know how long ago that was. Was that just a year ago or two now?
It was November 2018, I think.
Wow. Okay, so over 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Okay, so how was that? Can you explain a little bit? Okay, so brief thing for me. I am not a PKer. I do enjoy LMS now, however. So before you guys
Okay.
say this guy doesn't know anything, like I know how to do my little tribrid setup when everything's perfectly balanced and stuff. But like you've obviously been doing it for a lot longer. So can you just tell us the story behind PvP All Stars and what you did to get to the position to get on Jagex arena and then to win it all? Can you just like
Yeah.
tell us?
So we got notified, I think about 2 months before the actual event, and they basically told us what was going to happen. So everyone started practicing. My practice for that, I was mainly fighting people in my team, and I'm in a team called Blazers. The name of that is to like be silly as a troll because everyone's super serious about their team name. So we just like took the piss and said, yeah, we called Blazers. Um, it was originally Weed Blazers, but that was too far. So now we're just called
Yeah.
Blazers. So yeah, I practiced with a guy in there called Psych, who's a very good at nature, and I would do like anywhere from 2 to 3 hours a day, probably just fighting him constantly on the different builds. It was that you could fight on 70 defense account, 45 defense account, and a one defense account, and we just practiced on that. And I did that for yeah, probably like a month or so. I was a bit addicted to Apex at the same time, so I was playing a lot of Apex Legends. Um, but yeah, I practiced a decent amount, and then we got to the event, and it was the actual event itself was very early in the morning. So it was interesting. Like my first fight was 12 hours after I'd actually woken up. So because I hadn't been like drinking coffee or energy drinks or anything, I think I was in a lot better situation than everyone else. Because I think by the end of it, everyone was super tired, so people were performing kind of less, less than their full potential.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it went really well. I think my first fight, I can't remember who it was with, maybe Skidler. It was a very uh, shaky start, I would say, but then after that, it was pretty smooth sailing. I had some close fights against Frames, Skill Specs, and yeah, no, it went really well. I was really confident. And yeah, we finished it winning 15-0. We didn't lose any fights to anyone. And it was kind of the ideal tournament because it was all land based. Everyone had the same ping. We all were on the normal client, so you couldn't use any features that could benefit you. So everyone was on the same page, and it was really nice. A lot of people critique it because it wasn't like the best PKs, so it's not like a great claim, but a lot of us have been practicing for like 2 months, so people were decent and all right. But yeah, it was really fun, and yeah, it was good.
Wow. So I didn't actually know that it was all there. Like I thought there was people like playing from like in other countries and stuff playing, but it was just a LAN tournament basically, right?
Yeah, no, literally everyone was there.
That's awesome. That's optimal. Like you said, like I can't imagine they could pull that off too often.
Yeah.
So I have my own sort of topic I want to first get into, and that is it's a big one.
Okay.
What this is so strange because like I'm so used to like just the typical Ironman or main that I'm talking to or just PVMer, but this is like something completely different. So I'm gonna pick at your brain. So I've watched quite a few PKers, like videos by Framed and other. There's a lot of PKers, Torvesta, just the popular ones on YouTube,
Yeah.
and they all want PvP to be revived. They will give their like examples and stuff. But I'm curious to you, I don't know if you've given it much thought, but like, what is like the main thing that would truly revive PvP in your eyes?
Okay, it'll be a very simple answer, and I can go into more detail. But my simple answer is actual updates. The So what I mean by actual updates, is let's say you're a PVMer, and the only content you've had access to for the last 7 years is God Wars and maybe Barrows. Let's say that's the only content you've been able to do. Now, in 7 years, do you think the player base for PVM would grow or kind of shrink, you know?
Yeah.
And that's basically what PvP's been. Like we haven't had any proper updates. We've had kind of attempts at updates, but never like proper good updates. So, for example, the wilderness bosses, right now, to kill them effectively or to even have a chance at killing them, you have to literally safe spot them. And in my view, that's not a good design of a boss, you know? If they're built for multiple people to do them, then the loot should be better. If they're built for solo people to do them, then I mean, you need to rework the mechanics. And there's so for me, for a specific update that I'd like to see, maybe to try and revive it. I think there's loads of different areas of PvP you kind of have to address. So if you wanted to encourage PKers to kind of fight PKers, or maybe help PVMers get into PKing, you could literally, for example, Callisto, you put him in a cave somewhere, you give him mechanics where if you learn the mechanics and you do everything right, you take no damage, but they're quite difficult mechanics, right? So I like the what is it? Theater of Blood, the spider room, where you have to get the right prayers against that boss. I think that's a really cool thing. And if you included that with a bunch of different mechanics for Callisto and made it so a good PKer or a good PVMer could do that, and they would do that in tribrid gear, so you'd have to use all three styles. That would not only help PVMers kind of learn how to PK without even thinking about it, but it would also allow the person killing that boss to be able to fight back against the PKer. And I think that could be a really good mechanic which could like tighten that gap. And then in terms of actual PvP, so for me, there's two different types of PvP. You've got the PvP where player versus player. So you're just doing actual PKing, like Bounty Hunter. It's the literal player versus player. They're going there to fight someone else, to fight another PKer. For that to work, you need, for the base like noobs, to be able to make a little bit of profit and not just constantly lose money. The problem with the bounty hunter systems recently have been, obviously there's a botting issue or a boosting issue that needs to actually be addressed by Jagex, and you can't really have anything in PvP if Jagex don't just monitor it, because if a noob has no way of making any money, then why would they invest their time into learning it where they could go invest their time into learning Zulrah, for example, and make guaranteed profit, right?
True.
There's no point. So if they want to help noobs learn how to PK, they need to make it somewhat profitable. So pre-OC, you had that EP system. I think if they had an EP system for old school RuneScape, but they made it, they actually monitored it, it would be really good, because right now, I would say the top 20% of PKers probably make like all right money. And then the rest of the PKers that try and PK, they'll either lose money or they'll just about break even. But the majority of players will lose money. And with that EP system, if you die like 4 times and you lose, let's say, 200k every time, but then you have a chance on that 5th time and you manage to kill someone and you kill someone for like you get a mill emblem. Right now, if you killed them, you'd get maybe 200k, right? So then you're still down 600k because you've died 4 times and you've only killed 1 person. However, if you have that chance to get extra GP on top of their loot, you have that chance to bridge that gap of how much you've lost, and then you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'm going to continue and actually carry on trying to do it, you know? So I think that's one good thing for that. And then the other one, which is a lot more controversial, is the other form of PvP in my eyes, which is the PvP ecosystem, which is person is in the wilderness doing an activity, pker hunts that person, another pker hunts that pker. And that's kind of the ecosystem that RuneScape just has. And I personally believe some of the best methods in the game for either making GP or getting XP or whatever. Maybe not XP. XP might be a bit too extreme, but making GP for sure, it should be really good in the wilderness, because in the entire game right now, if you die, you literally don't lose anything. It's completely safe, and I genuinely think when they changed those death mechanics, I think that was kind of where the gap between PVMers and PKers began, because now the only place where you can kind of lose progress and get griefed is in the wilderness. And that is why PVMers probably hate PKers, because we kill you while you're doing your clue scroll, or you're killing your boss for that unique item that you want, and you lose progress, you lose time, and that's really annoying. I completely understand that, and that's why PVMers hate PKs. If they lost money at like Bandos, for example, if they died and there was an actual choice on what gear you had to take because you could actually lose items, I think when you died in the wilderness, you wouldn't be as mad at the PKs, and that would be different. So yeah, I think for the wilderness, having actual updates, it obviously just helps, and having kind of rebalancing the risk versus reward, I think really needs to be addressed, and that's entirely up to Jagex whether they want to do that or not. Because at the end of the day, you can just say, well, the wilderness, it has low requirements. You can go get a rune crossbow and go bolt revs and make some money. It's not skillful at all. I agree with that. The skill isn't there, but the risk versus reward, like if you stay at revs for half an hour and you get like 500k, not only are you risking that 500k that you've made, you're risking that 30 minutes that you just spent there. You're risking the gear that you have on you. You know, you've got all of those factors of risk, and that's not reflected anywhere else in the game. If you make all that money anywhere else in the game, that's guaranteed profit. You cannot lose it anymore. In the wilderness, you have to bank, and nobody wants to constantly bank because then you waste time, and you've got all of that. So that's why I think it should be good money in the wilderness.
Okay. First thing, you brought up actually some really good points, and points I had actually never even thought about, which is why I'm glad to have you on. So the first point you brought up was like the Callisto thing, making it actually tribrid friendly. So, because one thing I've always noticed is that when you go out in the wilderness, it would be really cool if it was high risk, high reward, but in like a perfect scenario where the PVMer isn't just at a horrible disadvantage, where they're actually risking extremely valuable items. They have no actual gear set up. Maybe they're just bringing a Vigora's mace where like the PKer can freeze them and they're just sitting there like being owned. But I think that Callisto mechanic you said, where they can take 0 damage, but if a PKer comes, they're already set to fight back, because that's what needs to be happening. Like, I feel like there needs to be some sort of change, and you just like literally hit it on the head. Like, if you're already kind of geared for a tribrid setup, and it's, again, if Callisto was in like singles or something, where it's not just a team comes, okay, like you're fucked. I think that's actually really good. And the Nilo boss you brought up was like a perfect example of how you can do that. Going on to that a little bit more, what are your actual thoughts on Singles Plus? This is like a little side tangent for this little topic, and then I want to get on to the other things you had mentioned. But What do you think of singles plus? Would these bosses that get updated, would that be good to have in singles plus, or do you think they need to be in multi?
Okay, so the problem is there's different aspects of the community for PKing. So you've got singles teams, you've got multi teams. What they did to Revs basically eliminated any multi teams, and now yes, there's multi areas in the wilderness, but there's no actual reason for multi teams to be there. So multi PKing is kind of dead right now. If they wanted to actually make the changes as I've suggested, where you could actually fight back, you'd have to put them in singles, because then I think multi would kind of just, you gear up to do your boss, and then a 5-man team kills you. It's kind of like, well, you were never going to win that fight.
Yeah.
So maybe they could have a boss in multi that requires a team to kill, and therefore no solo players will actually try and kill it. And they don't give it uniques, but they just give it like OKGP or something. So Ironmen, for example, don't feel obliged to go do it. Because if you add uniques to stuff, I understand that people like Ironmen, they're like, oh, I need to get this upgrade for my account, otherwise I'm not being efficient,
Yep.
So if you did a multi boss that required multiple people, or maybe allow irons to do it, but I don't know. I think that would have to just simply be a GP output as opposed to any unique items. For singles plus, so I personally would prefer if the entire wilderness was single plus.
Agree.
However, yeah, I've never pushed it though, because I think the second you do that, you essentially kill off single PKing. And I say single PKing, essentially multi PKing and single with your teams and your friends.
Yeah.
I've done it in the past. It's a lot of fun being in TeamSpeak or Discord or whatever, like hanging out with your friends, PKing people. It is so much fun. It's probably one of the funnest things on the game. And until you've done it, you don't really appreciate how fun it truly is. But at the same time, it does kill off PKing, because any solo PKers that want to go PK, they go PK for half an hour. They have fun finding like noobs to kill, or solo PKs to kill, and then they run into someone in a big team, and that big team will most likely kill you. And there's not much you can do about it. Yes, you can be okay at tanking, but I would say like 90% of people who get baited by a team and then get fooled or halved even will probably die to that team. And I've always said to myself, it's kind of up to the singles community whether they want the wilderness to be alive. Because in my opinion, if I go to singles to go PK and I go to 1v1 people, I would love for it to be singles plus, because then I know I'm actually having a 1v1. I can't be scammed out of a fight and have his friend come and PJ me. I think I would much prefer that, and I'd have so much more fun with that. And I know a lot more people who are a more newbie, let's say, would have a lot more fun being able to run around and only have a 1v1. So all in all, I think overall it would be a very positive change. However, I would feel bad for the people who maybe aren't the greatest PKer and they just like bolt ragging for their team or whatever, and they just like having fun with their friends. They wouldn't really be able to do that as much anymore. You could still kind of bully people to an extent, because if you fall in on someone and they don't fight back, they don't have that PJ timer effect actually happening. So you could still technically like have like 5v1 or whatever. But yeah, the other problem is if you have singles plus, the people who know how to tank, the wilderness becomes a lot more safe, because it's very believe it or not, it is very difficult to kill people in the wilderness. If you know what you're doing, it's very difficult to die because of how powerful or unpowerful weapons are. So yeah, it bring a very weird atmosphere to the wilderness. You'd probably have people running around in max because they just know they won't die, and they'd only die if they got baited to like multi. So that'd be weird, but I think it would be really good for a lot of people just going in basic gear and fighting each other. Maybe you have it so you say, look, you cannot bring Ancestral Ellie to the wilderness anymore. You have to go in Arim's max. That might solve that, and that might make it so people can actually die and actually have fun fights with each other. But you'd have to decide which items you're allowed and aren't, and it might get messy. So, but for me personally, I would be in favor of singles plus. I've had so much fun recently PKing in full DH in the Rev Caves because I know nobody can PJ me. I only have to focus on that one person I'm actually fighting. So yeah, overall for me, I absolutely love singles plus, but I know that would potentially kill off some communities, which yeah, they'd kind of have to make the conscious decision to be like, yeah, no, we're okay with this. We want the wilderness to be more active. We'll take the hit and we'll sacrifice peaking with our team so we can actually have 1v1 fights and more people do it.
Yeah, I can definitely see how like single team PKing can be really fun because first of all, it takes a lot of coordination. You have to be actually in like a call, which in basically is like encouraging, you know, actually playing an MMO where you're like talking to other people, not just everything solo. So, and I can totally understand that would be a lot of fun because I used to do revs back when I was hunting the weapons, and by the last month there was actually sort of a protection clan going on, and so we would get called for like, you know, masses against another huge clan, and it was a ton of fun. Like, and so like I understand the fun that can go into it, and I do agree with you. Singles plus would be, you do say like, so I agree that singles plus, if every singles area turned into singles plus, it would be extremely safe, especially if you know what you're doing. Like rev caves nowadays, it is extremely hard to die in there if you're a like if you're actually the one killing the revs and you get attacked, it is a very, very high likelihood that you survive. Unless you just get extremely unlucky and somebody brings DH like you do and you just can't out-eat it. But I actually have a question because I'm not fully aware of all the mechanics with singles plus. But if the PKer attacks another player off a rev, the rev has to stop, and then you start attacking. But if the player that you're attacking doesn't attack back, can another PKer PJ you because you're not technically under attack?
No, so that's the beauty of singles plus. And for a long time, Deadman Mode was if you're attacking someone could attack you off, and it'd be really annoying because then if you were solo PKing, two people could run around and basically stop you from killing them. So now in Deadman Mode, there's a PJ timer basically, which works exactly like single plus. So the second you're in combat with someone else, if you're both fighting back, none of you can get PJ'd. If the attacker is attacking the let's just call him a noob just for easy clarification. If the attacker's attacking a noob, the attacker cannot be PJ'd. However, if the attacker is attacking the noob and the attacker pulls off, someone else can, within a couple of seconds, get on the noob. So the best way to stop that from happening is basically just to bolt back. But then I guess you risk getting skull tricked and all of that. So you have to be really careful.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. So technically, well, no, I guess it would work because I was gonna say basically one way to just evade any PK, or if you're a PVMer, is to just bring a ZGS the PK or walk under him and then just log out after 10 seconds. Like, but, and then when you said, or I guess it's irrelevant because you're going to attack with the ZGS anyway, which means you just attack back, which is fine. But you said if you don't attack back, then another PKer can actually get onto you after just a few seconds.
So yeah, so let's say I'm chasing you down and then I don't have teleblock, but my friend does. If I don't attack you, it's still an extended delay that normally wouldn't be there. But if I stop attacking you, my friend, after like a couple of seconds, will be able to teleblock you.
Interesting. Okay, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah, and then they can pull off you, and then I can get back on you. However, if you fight back, it becomes insanely hard to pull that off. And basically, I would have to freeze you, stand under you, and then my friend would have to TB you. But if you're fighting back, you might even be able to get the log off. The thing with the ZGS, that only works if you do it like really well timed, because the PJ system, it works basically. You have like a tick of leniency. So if you ZGS them, you have to instantly stand under them and not let them hit you back. If they hit you back, someone else can get on you. But if they don't hit you back and you stand under them, you're good and you'll be able to log out typically.
Interesting. Okay. And you can always just like if you the PVMer were to just bring freezes, you can also freeze the person and then just run out of their distance and then just log. Unless like
Uh,
obviously another player like another PKer were to get onto you.
yeah. So your best way to escape if a PK gets on you and you have freezes, you literally freeze them and just run around a corner. If they don't hit you back, you'll be able to log out.
Okay.
It's very simple, and that's one of the key escapes in Deadman Mode. But not many people know that. So, yeah, it is like your best way to escape. Honestly, in the Rev caves, it's very safe if you know what you're doing. Yeah.
Yep. No, I noticed that. I was like this I feel it I almost had PTSD of just a team logging in on me because of just my 3 months in the Rev caves. But then like I since the update, I'm like, okay, this is like crazy safe almost like to the point where like I don't know, I just feel like basically immortal kind of as long as
Yeah.
I'm eating and I don't DC. I actually disagree with the point you brought up where like we should limit the gear you could bring into the wilderness if it was all changed to singles plus. Like you said,
Okay.
like maybe not having an Ellie allowed. I think it would still be cool because that is like a super high risk. I know you'd probably keep it if you're like tanking with it, so it's not like you're really risking it. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like there are items like that that should be used because they are extremely expensive.
The
And
the problem with that is if you allow someone to go into the wilderness with like full ancestral, Ellie, full armadillo, like the best, very best gear, they essentially become unkillable, and the only way they die is yeah, DC pretty much. So it depends. It depends what you want to have. If you do want to allow people to run around like that, they probably will never die, and they'll probably just bully everyone else. But I mean, at the same time, if they're willing to risk it, fair enough. But at the same time, it's not truly a risk because
yeah,
it's like,
unless they DC because yeah, they're as long as they know what they're doing and stuff, they're completely fine. But at
yeah,
the same time, I like it because somebody else could bring the exact same gear and like because not only is it really tanky like bringing all that, but it's also really good DPS. So like the fact that you basically are immortal means that like if another person wanted to come out and bully back in a way like they can and they're not really risking much either in the same. So like
yeah,
I don't know, it's kind of like weird. Like I understand your point where it kind of kills off any like mid-level trying to go out in the wilderness because it's like okay, this guy's just going to bully me because I'm not rich enough to afford all this. But I don't know. At the same time, like making arbitrary limits kind of like is weird.
yeah,
The other point you brought up was basically people trying to get into PvP, like giving them like a monetary incentive so they're not just constantly losing money trying to practice. I think LMS was a great addition. I never understood how to tribrid or anything or NH um, until LMS came out. And like I'm an Ironman, so like I would have never learned. I think having LMS, and I'm curious what your thoughts are because I know there's some like wilderness purists out there that don't want any mini game being like in the game. They just want PKing as old school as it is. Go in the wilderness, fight. There's no free practice somewhere. It's just kind of like you go out there. But I think LMS is great, and I think it actually teaches a lot. At least with NHing, and just I think it gives you confidence. Because honestly, if I was a normal count, I'd actually be decently confident going out and like out in the wilderness by myself with like a normal tribrid setup at this point. Like I'd feel actually pretty confident that I can, you know, attack back
yeah.
and actually provide a good fight for the other guy. But what are your thoughts like on PK mini games? Because I know they're trying to also come out with like faction wars. I think they've coined it as like where it's kind of like PVM and PKing. Like they're kind of bringing out like mini games where there's PKing. But what are your thoughts? Like,
Um, okay. LMS. Yep. So funnily enough, it was my friend who DM'd me saying, "Yo, why don't they just give you a basic tribid setup?" And he said a bunch of this stuff, and then I said that at a like event that they had for when they invited a bunch of content creators. I think it was like a year or two ago, and we all like pitched in ideas, and then Mod Rock worked on it in his own time for us. It is such a good idea, and yeah, I think it definitely does help a lot of people for NHing. I think pre-OC, the thing with pre-OC was back then there wasn't that much end game content. There wasn't Raids 1 or Raids 2 or like Theory of Blood or anything like that. Like your end game content was dungeoneering, uh Nex, I think it was called. Like those were your main things. A lot of people had PKing as their end game content. So the beautiful thing about it was there were so many noobs doing it that yeah, sometimes you might get a raid boss PKing, but then the majority of the time you'd get someone who's not very skilled or just average skill, and it'd be all right. These days, pretty much every single person in the wilderness is a raid boss, so it is very difficult to learn. And I think the only way you could do mini games, and that could encourage kind of fighting like PvP. So, for example, Soul Wars, to an extent, you do kind of learn PvP because you have to fight other people. But I don't think it's a great like Edgeville fighting introduction. I think for that you kind of just need to make it so you again it's like the EP system that I suggested. I really disliked the EP system because I didn't get the items that the other person had, and that really upset me because a lot of the time the loot that I got was a lot less than what I actually killed the person for. But for Nubia people, I think having an additional EP system would encourage them to PK more because they actually might be able to make a bit of money and not lose money. Mini games for it, I don't know. The faction thing they talked about, I thought was really cool. Fist of was it Fist of Gothics?
I'm not
Or
actually sure. I didn't really play back then, but
okay, yeah, I think it was Fist of Gothics. That was really fun, and I used to play that a bunch. And I think that was pretty good for 1v1ing, like learning 1v1ing and hunting people down and stuff. It was a lot of fun. I never played Stealing Creation, but I think that was the same. Like you make gear and stuff, and then you have to fight people or something. Mini games could work, but it really depends what Jagex kind of want. I think for Edgeville fighting, in my opinion, obviously I'm a PKer, but I would say PKing is just some of the funnest content because it's always different because every fight is different and it's just constant different scenarios. And it makes me really sad that so many people don't actually get to properly experience it because of truly how fun it is. But I just think they need to make it a lot more noob friendly in terms of the loss of GP. The mini games, you'd have to have good rewards to actually make people want to do it. And that's why I think promoting doing actual Edgeville fighting would be a lot better than a mini game because I don't think the reward you would need to have to encourage people to do it would be good enough from a mini game. So yeah, I think encourage them through additional loot when killing people. So if you die a bunch of times, you can still actually break even or make a little bit of profit would be ideal. But again, the boosters, they'd have to monitor it. And I don't know if they're willing to kind of put that time into PvP, you know?
yeah. Okay, so I have a little thing that I want to ask you. I've asked other previous guests on the Sae Bae Cast.
Yep.
So the predator versus prey is what I call it, where and you actually kind of bring up a better point where it is kind of an ecosystem because I have seen where a better PKer than the PKer that's attacking just the prey gets on the other PKer. So it's kind of like it is kind of like an ecosystem where like there's PKers out there just to attack PKers that are attacking the PVMers. So, and I've noticed that too because I've gotten all wilderness pets. I've spent my fair share out there in the wilderness. So I've read a few different like Reddit posts of people like with suggestions. Obviously they don't get much traction because it's very unpopular, but the fact that RuneScape used to be like the old school wilderness used to not have any incentive to go out there besides maybe greater demons for a rune full helm, you know? And now that we've been playing old school, they've come out with, you know, all these wildy bosses. They've come out with the chaos altar. They've come out with like a skilling resource area, agility course, black chins, all these different ways to like entice players that don't necessarily want to be out there, but I guess they are willing to go out there because of how good that PVM or skilling method is. Like, do you think that inherently is like a good thing to do, to just keep enticing players of all kinds to go out there, even though, because I could understand enticing players to go out there to fight back, like exclusively be like, okay, you can, I guess bounty hunter is kind of a way, but again, bounty hunter, like you said, can only really work if there's real-time monitoring. Like, you can't just leave it alone because it is boostable. But do you think that that's a good thing? Like, do you think like the way Jagex has taken old school and introduced all these things into the wilderness is healthy? Or do you think it kind of like makes players bitter against PKers?
Okay, controversial time. Let's go. So I personally, a lot of people hate me for saying this. I feel like a lot of RuneScape players these days are very entitled,
Oh yeah.
and
No, I agree.
because people think I want this item, but I have to go to the wilderness to do it. Why do I have to do that? And to me, whenever someone says, "Oh, I'm being forced to go to the wildy," it's like, mate, if you don't want the item, just don't do it. Like, I could go PK without Barrow's gloves, but you know what? I want Barrow's gloves, so I have to go do 100 different quests to go get them. And it's not difficult, but it's annoying. I don't like that. I mainly enjoy PvP on the game, but I have to do that stuff. So why don't other people go to the wilderness if they truly want to get those items? Go do that. Um, so I think the wilderness should have its own unique content. Some of the examples you mentioned, I'm just like resource area, for example, the resource arena or area, it's awful. It literally awful. Like if the dark crabs maybe got banked when you were fishing them, so you weren't actually risking them or something. Like, it was good, but I don't think the resource area is used for anything because there's no like actual good reason to use it.
It's garbage. It's such an old update. Like, that thing needs to be buffed or something if it's gonna.
It,
I don't know.
it's just like, yeah, let me go to the wilderness area, resource area, and not get much of a buff in anything. I don't even know what the buffs are, to be honest, from it. But I know it's that bad that there's literally no reason to go do it. And that's what most of the updates are. It's like Callisto. A lot of the wilderness bosses, they're mainly done by people hunting the pets or Ironmen that are just hunting the dragon pickaxe. And I just think if they were redesigned to actually be good, engaging content, they would be like. Then you could say, you could give it good rewards. Like the dragon pickaxe. Let's be honest. I don't know how much of an improvement it is from a rune pickaxe, but obviously people want it for raids because I think it helps, right?
Yeah.
You do more damage. So if people say to me, "Oh, I have to get a dragon pickaxe," well, I'm just like, okay, well, if you don't want to get a dragon pickaxe, just use a rune one then, mate. It's like you don't. You're not entitled to get every single item. You either go for it or you don't. I think someone suggested, I can't remember if it was framed or not, but they suggested getting, but just below tick rates, but in the wilderness, but you had to risk a bunch. So people could get fairly decent XP, but then they'd be risking money or something for it. That's very controversial, but you also have to remember, if you give an area like a decent XP rate, that means a lot of people might go do it. That also means a lot of PKers will go kill those people to it, which all in all will mean that rate will actually be like 50% of what it's actually meant to be, and it won't actually be a good rate. It's the same thing with revs. Right now, revs are singles. It's pretty safe. But the loot is absolutely awful. And that means when I went PKing the other day, I found someone in one every like 15 worlds or something. If you up the loot, the GP per hour still won't actually increase much because more people going there means more PKers go there, which means you get interrupted a hell of a lot more, which means you don't actually make as much profit as you were going to maybe when it was less GP per hour. So the wilderness, because it's such a weird area, you really have to boost the rates of stuff before stuff actually becomes better because of the factor of the PKs. The PKs ruin everything. The PKs make everything inefficient. I remember when I used to do revs, I did it for a little while, and I remember getting attacked. I wasn't in the protection world or anything. I'd get attacked like every, I'd say 5 minutes. and it was like I stopped doing it because I was
Yeah,
like,
it's just
what's the point, man?
obnoxious. Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
because the loot
exactly.
was so good, and I completely agree with you.
Yeah, so it's kind of, they need that to be in there. And I think, I don't know, I just think Chaos Altar is a good example. Chaos Altar is a good alternative way of training a prayer. There isn't necessarily that much risk, apart from the bones you have when you initially run there, but because the buff is so good, it's kind of worth it. And that is where you'll find a lot of PKs. I will happily go PK there. I think I did this last week or something. I wanted to PK in the wilderness. I thought, okay, where's actually active? And literally the only spot other than Revs I could think of was there. So I was literally going there to try and find other PKs there. I wasn't trying to find people doing bones. If I killed someone and I got their bones, unless they're the really good bones from Vorkath, I just leave them on the floor and let them go pick them up and go use the bones. I wasn't there for the bones. I was there for the fights, and I knew that because that thing actually attracts people, it will attract those newbie PKers that I can then go kill.
That's true.
So that's a great example of something that I think it is a choice. If you want to potentially save half of your bones, go to the wilderness and use them. You might die to a PK before getting to use them, and then you lose those 28 bones or whatever. That's the risk, and I think that's a good mechanic to have in the game. It's a choice, and a lot of the things are a choice. If you choose to go to the wilderness, I read a tweet from someone saying all the PKs are losers. They're just trying to get free stuff or whatever. I can't remember the exact saying of it or wording of it. And I literally responded to it saying, you're calling PKs losers because they're just trying to get free stuff, but you're literally angry because you can't go to the wilderness for free and not risk anything and get your reward. You know, it's like he didn't have a concept of risk versus reward. If you don't want to do that clue scroll step and you don't want to risk losing anything, don't go to the wilderness. Don't complete that clue. You know, it's all a choice. And I think the entitlement of a lot of people has made it a very bad view. Obviously, Jagex has to be really careful with what they introduce to the wilderness, because as much as I say this, I don't want someone to feel forced to get, let's say it's a really good item for like raids or something. I don't want someone to feel like they have to get it, otherwise it's not effective to go do raids. You know, that sucks. I think Dragon Pickaxe, that's like kind of a smaller thing that's not as important. But yeah, they have to be careful with it. But I think if they could literally, so Zaya is interesting because I played Twisted League. I really enjoyed it. I only played it for like the first 2 weeks, but I was really addicted, and I learned how kind of it has its own ecosystem and its own economy to an extent, and you can basically be a Zaya only Iron Man and make it all work. You know, I kind of wish they did that with the wilderness as well, and they made it so, let's say you get an item in the wilderness, that then helps with doing another thing in the wilderness. And it kind of promotes that ecosystem as well, where if you get this, it then boosts this. And they actually gave it proper updates. And yeah, it kind of worked like that. So then the people that would be hunting items in the wilderness would be the PKers or the people who enjoyed wilderness content, who wanted to go for that kind of content maybe.
Yeah, no, you bring up a lot of good points. And I completely agree with you where, like, you know, if you're gonna complain, you were never forced to go out in the wilderness. I completely agree with that, like, argument where it's just people whining. But on just to play, just to be like as unbiased as possible, as much as I agree with you, but then I also see the opposite end where PKers start whining that PvP updates aren't passing. And it's the same thing where it's like, well, I mean, you like, you know, it can go in like, it's like vice versa, you know, like it can go both ways where people complain that they died and then the PKer is like, you didn't need to go out there. But then it's like the same thing. It's like the PKer starts complaining that updates aren't passing. It's like, oh, well, you should have spared my life when I was out there and I would have voted yes, you know, or something, you know, just these are bad examples.
Yeah,
but
for that, just quickly,
yeah, go ahead.
for the polling thing, the problem with polling is, let's be honest, the PvP community we do not have 75% of the community. We don't have 50% of the community. We probably don't even have 25% of the community. The fact that 25% of the RuneScape community can basically just say, nope, you're not getting this update. It's really unfair. And it's limited so many updates that would genuinely have been really good for the wilderness. Because that 75% pass rate, let's be honest, I think people kind of vote selfishly and they don't think like what's the greater good for the game.
Yeah.
So the polling thing, yeah, it really frustrates me because it's literally 25% of the community that decides if PvPers get anything or not.
Yeah. No, and like me personally, I'm not saying I'm right. This is all my opinions, and my opinions change all the time, especially when I hear things from you, because just out of the few things you've already mentioned, like I've already kind of like altered my mindset of like, what really is truly good for the game and like what's just my selfish desires. But personally, I don't like the enticement to get players that absolutely do not want to PK, do not want to do anything, go out there. It's the same thing where it's like, what if they were to, and I'm saying like, a skilling thing, sort of like a dragon pickaxe, having to go out in the wilderness and get it. I understand the risk versus reward, but imagine you had to go get like a PvP item from skilling. It's just like, you don't want to do that. Like you want to get it from the thing you like. And that's why, normal raids are so much fun for PVMers, because it's exactly, they're getting PVM items from PVM and there's no PvP involved at all. And like, I'm assuming it's the same thing with PvPers, where it's like there is obviously a trade-off where you need to go get Barrow's gloves, but you wouldn't want more things that you need from PvP, or you wouldn't want more things that you do need for PvP to come from skilling or quests or other things like that. You just want to go PvP. So personally, I don't really like the enticement. I remember Frame's video was, his reviving PvP was, bringing out wilderness implings and just other forms of just getting people out there. I remember AddyCon had kind of mentioned making Rev something where it's like you charge a ring with gold, and the amount of gold you put in it will be like the amount of reward you can get because you're risking more. But it's kind of this boostable thing where it's like, if you make it good enough for people to go out there, there's going to be clans that are like boosting it and making fuck tons of money. So it is just hard. There's no real right answer to this all. It's all, relative. Like, I don't know. But the point I was trying to get to is basically, I think PvP updates wouldn't have a problem passing if there wasn't that much enticement to go out in the wilderness. And I feel like basically all PvP polls would pass if it was kind of more centered on player versus player, not like a predator versus prey type of thing. And another little thing I want to mention is I've actually been thinking about this over the past couple weeks. I do not like that they're trying to introduce items that keep you frozen for longer. I hate it. I hate that, like, they're literally leaning towards getting freezes to last up to like 24 seconds. It's like ridiculous. It's almost like, I honestly want the freezing. And here's a cool thing. If freezing was actually reduced to a maximum of 10 seconds, it would actually make singles plus even better than it is, because, well, I guess it kind of depends. But you couldn't just hide behind a barrier, because the guy would actually get unfrozen and like your target wouldn't be able to log out. But again, I haven't really fully thought this through. I just feel like the freezing mechanic is extremely obnoxious. And if they're going to actually keep singles the way it is and not introduce singles plus throughout everything, teams are going to have it even easier when they can just constantly freeze for 18 to like 21, maybe even up to like 24 seconds at a time. Where if they reduced it, it actually kind of encourages a little bit more of like, you could potentially survive this if you're not being frozen for just forever, basically. I don't know what you think about the freezing, but
okay, I'm just gonna come back to a point you said earlier.
Okay.
For the we wouldn't want PvP stuff coming from PVM. I would say like all PvP stuff comes from PVM though.
That's actually a good point. Now that I think about it, yeah, I didn't. No, you got a good point. But at the same time, it is just buyable. I mean, and I guess that's the same thing. I mean, I guess I'm taking it both ways. But with main accounts, you can't just buy everything besides barrels, gloves, and stuff. And then I guess I'm thinking more of an Iron Man toward the other way. So my argument wasn't actually sound. It was just kind of like my own bias. But no, you bring up a good point. But most Iron Men, most people that would be forced to go do PVM aren't going to be PKing in the first place because they're Iron Men.
Yeah. Just another quick question for LMS. Why were you doing LMS?
LMS when it first, not when it first was released, when you had like 10 prayer points to start and it was just a prayer flicking contest. But after they kind of reduced or introduced new rewards and they updated it, I actually went because there was a poll coming out where they were going to poll what rewards it should be given, and one of the rewards was clue scrolls. They were going to poll it basically, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go as ham as possible on this and just get a bunch of points saved up so that potentially if they introduce clue scrolls as rewards, they'll probably end up being really busted at first and then get nerfed later on. I'm just going to abuse it. So that was my first introduction to it, and I absolutely loved it. Like I was having the time of my life. And LMS can be extremely addicting at times.
Yeah. So the reason I say that is because I mean, the reason you did that LMS was because the potential reward, right?
Yep.
So that was kind of a choice, and then you did it and you really enjoyed it. And I think obviously some people just simply won't like PvP. But I think if people kind of get a taste of it and see what it's actually truly all about, people will genuinely enjoy it and potentially do it in the future. And that's why I think, obviously, essentially, I want to say luring people to do PVM content in the wilderness, that's not as enjoyable because, they're basically being hunted by people. But I think you can... I don't know. It's super easy to tank. I know it's not enjoyable having to tank a team or whatever, but I think that choice of doing it or not, and that everything's a choice. So I don't think there is necessarily pushing anyone to do it. It's like I remember suggesting a reward from LMS, and then I got told, well, what about if completionists they won't want to do that? That's loads of PvP, and I was like, well, if they're a completionist, but they're not willing to actually complete everything the game has to offer, they're not true completionists, are they? So I don't know.
That's really dumb, by the way. I think it's so dumb that there even is a question on putting that on the collection log. Put it on there. Like, it's literally, like, I don't understand it. So I completely agree with you there. That makes no sense that people are like, no, don't add this because I don't want to do it. It's like, that's completionist.
Yeah, I've always been shot down, I think, with a lot of ideas purely because we don't want to make people go do it. And I get it to an extent, but at the same time, it's always a choice. Everyone has a choice on what content they do. And with the polling, trust me, there's been some polls in our time that haven't passed and they would not have been negative for PVMers, but it's just been voted no because I think
ignorance.
The main... ignorance. It's literally people don't understand what the question actually means. And they might get scared of it and they're like, no, don't want that. But in reality, it's like, bro, that update would have been so good for the game and it would have been so good, but it's so nice. But yeah, I think that's a big part of it as well. And I think when we were at Jagex, we kind of, I think they might have suggested it or someone did, but putting like an explanation for each kind of poll, each kind of question and saying, these are the potential outcomes. Which I think might help people, especially for PvP stuff. But yeah, sorry, I went on a massive tangent, but I just wanted to ask about the LMS thing.
You're good. I actually have sort of so I'm gonna kind of like manipulate this question or this topic, I guess. DK Ho on Twitter just asks, is it possible to have PvPers and PVMers/skillers coincide in a mutualistic relationship? The rev protection system was the closest thing. For some reason, I had just read that and something just popped into my mind. So I actually think it would be cool. I don't know how you'd exactly work this, but okay, well, here's again another side tangent of the fact that Iron Man ever came out into the game has just made PvP in this weird state where not every player is equal. Like, it's kind of like not everyone's a main anymore. Not everyone can just reclaim their items just from the GE. Not everything's just GP based, and things aren't fair for irons, and that's just how the game is at this point. So have
Yeah.
to make that, because it is kind of a shame that, like, as much as I absolutely love Iron Man and I would never want to see it go, I do fully understand what it did to the game, and it kind of made PvP. I feel like it honestly contributed a lot toward killing PvP a little bit, because no Iron Man will basically vote for anything PvP related, because
Yeah.
there is absolutely zero incentive for an Iron Man to go PK. It would just be like to shame somebody if an Iron Man killed you. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
So
that's literally why I did it.
yeah, no,
Just funny, isn't it?
yeah,
If you
no,
kill
yeah,
someone
it's
on a
just like an
hardcore or something.
embarrassment to the other guy,
Yeah.
especially if you're hardcore. God damn. But
Yeah.
the reason I kind of just mentioned this is because this is probably gonna just be a jumble, because I'm still thinking about it in my head. But what if
Yep.
there was a way to be able to basically like, it would have to be implemented in game where it's actually fair, but a way where you can actually pay a PKer, like a professional PKer, to protect you. But it would be something where, like, if you've paid the protection, the game would recognize it, and somebody couldn't, like, attack you until they, like, attack your bodyguard, basically. So it's like, I don't know how this would work out. This is actually silly now it's coming out of my mouth, but I'm thinking, like, if there was an amazing, skilling method or a boss you could kill, you could actually hire a bodyguard, basically like a PKer, and it would be single. So you would be uninterrupted, but you have to pay a big fee to, like, a PKer that would be out there protecting you, and it would be single still. But until your bodyguard is, like, dead, you cannot be touched, or something like that. Something where it's like, okay,
Okay.
this is like a new way for players to make money that want to PK, or, like, even just defend somebody. But I don't know how it would work. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think that would be really cool. The only problem is if you gave the PVM immunity, then people are going to find out how to abuse it probably. So that's probably
That's
my
true.
only
That's a good point. There's
yeah.
always there's always things that can be abused like that.
It's a really cool idea though. I don't know how feasible it'd be, like how much you'd have to pay them, and the quality of the PKer maybe determines how much you pay them. And it'd be pretty funny. For your point, for the skillers and the PVMers and the PvPers being like kind of one community, and Deadman Mode. You might laugh at this, but that was honestly one of the best. I think Deadman Mode represents how RuneScape should be. Because, for example, in my team Blazers, we have people in that team that are clueless at PKing, but they're very good PVMers or they're very good skillers. And Demo mode kind of brings everyone together, and you work as a team to feed your like best PKers the best gear so they can win the tournament for you and stuff. So that in itself, it's so much fun to play. It's so much fun to be a part of a team. Even just playing with friends. I've been told recently, I had some friends play at the last tournament, and they all played together and they all went raiding together. They didn't do it for PvP or anything. They did raids and stuff, and they had the time of their lives. And now they can't wait for more dev modes. And it's just so much fun because I streamed PKing for a couple of days, and then it got a bit stale. And I was just like, okay, now I'm just killing noobs. Killing the big stacked people would take literally days of fighting them. So I became part of my team, and I did skilling and I did PVM. And you know what? I had so much fun because it was like you're part of something. You're helping the team. You might be skilling, but you're helping your team by doing whatever skill that is. You know, whether you're smithing bolts or whatever. And it felt like the whole world of RuneScape kind of came alive with your team. Everything had a reason. Like, oh, I'm gonna go do Slayer so I can get primordial boots for the people who are fighting in the
Yeah,
finals with me or whatever. Like, it's so, I want to say beautiful, but
everything
it's just
connects. Yeah.
yeah, dude. Literally, I didn't realize how amazing RuneScape was as a game until the last Dead Mode that just passed, because I actually got to normally I was always streaming PKing and then I was playing on stage, so I'd never actually get to experience the team aspect of Dead Mode other than getting fed. So yeah, I didn't experience it until the last demo, but man, it was so much fun to just join TeamSpeak. I'd be killing Cerberus. I've never killed Cerberus in my life, and I was having the time of my life because I was like, dude, if I get these boots, that helps out my friend doing this, and then you'd have someone else fishing on like 2 accounts or 3 accounts trying to get as much food for the team as possible, and it all just connected, and it was just so cool
Yeah.
to see. And I wish more people got to experience that as well. Which I'm hoping they make some good den mode changes and have a good future den mode as well.
I'm glad a lot of people love, just I thing is I've never played Deadman Mode, and I don't know. There's just something like it like stresses me out to even like think of playing it because I didn't play on like the first one. I didn't go on and like so it stresses me out, and I feel like other players feel that same way, where if they were to just give it a chance, and it goes the same for me. If I were to give it a chance, I'd probably absolutely love it, because the last one where like raids was unlocked, I remember PVMers were like, I'm gonna go play Deadman Mode and I'm gonna make a lot of money because I'm gonna go to raids, stack up my team with like Ancestral or something, and then just make a bunch of money on the main game for doing that, for like helping out my team. And it was pretty beautiful now that I think about it, because I never played it, but I remember watching like Ari Slash, because that's what he was on a clan, and his whole job was just to get raids items, and he loved raids. So the whole thing that were like you could skill and you could PVM, but you could also just be fed, and just be the PKer. It is really nice, and I feel like they're getting closer and closer to what Deadman Mode's like true potential can be, with like including everyone. One of the other things is like when you said that, it kind of brought up faction wars for me, because I don't actually know what faction wars is gonna entail, but it kind of feels that way, where it's like there are the skillers, there are the PVMers that'll like kill stuff to like provide for your team, and then there's like the smithing, I'm assuming, to make armors quick, and it's all kind of like time based. It's like get it done quick and then help out the PKers that are gonna go like fight, and take over the other people's base. So
Yeah, I think that'd be sick as well.
yeah.
Like, I'm super hyped for that. I don't know whether it'll actually be a thing or not, but yeah, no, it sounded really good.
Is there any perk to PKing coming out from the combat achievement diaries?
What do you mean?
Like, is there anything where it's like PKers are now incentivized to do the combat achievements to get like a buff to PKing at all? Because
I think
I don't read it in that way. I don't.
I think I'll be completely honest. I haven't read it. I knew that combat achievements the second it was announced. I was like, "Yep, this is definitely going to pass."
Yeah,
And you
100%.
know what? I'm happy for PVMers because that is a sick update. I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy it, so it's cool. I haven't read it though because I knew it was going to pass. So I was kind of like, "There's
Yeah.
no point in reading about it." I think there's something to do with a defender being more accurate.
Yeah, that
Or
actually was
offhand.
the one thing that failed. Everything else passed, which is
Oh,
surprising how
okay.
that's the thing that failed. But yeah,
All right, then never mind. I don't know if there is anything for PvP from that then.
I was just curious. Yeah, I don't think there is, but again, I was just asking you to see if you knew. But yeah, I don't read updates. I don't read it in like the eyes of a PK, or like how is this going to benefit.
Yeah.
But I know that the mini game update that's coming out, where basically everything passed. I know Shades of Morton's coming out with that new Swamp Bark and some other armor. It's like Swamp Bark and something else that's going to improve freezing. And then also the Tome of Waters coming out, which is improving like binding spells and stuff further.
I think didn't that fail the actual PvP stuff though?
Two of the perks of the tome failed. So shit. Okay, now I need to think, because I know the ancients failed because they were wanting to buff like the actual ancients damage, and
Yeah.
like or maybe it was just the accuracy of like ice
I
barrage
think it
and
was
stuff.
accuracy,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. Dang, I would actually need to look back because
All right, no worries.
now I'm out of the loop again. But so here's a question. So I guess you kind of already touched on this, but what would it really take to bring Bounty Hunter back? And do you think Bounty Hunter should come back? And what would, and I know you
Good
already
question.
had mentioned it, where it's like that elo system and like where you can actually make back money. Again, it would have to include real time Jagex monitoring to like be good. But
Yeah.
do you think it needs to come back?
So, um, so it depends. Honestly, there's so many ifs. It's like, well, it's a really fun part of the game. Giving a target. It's like bounty hunter creators back in the day in like 2008 or nine, I think it was. I had so much fun doing that, and it was literally just teleporting to your target and killing them. And if you didn't kill your target, you got a penalty. I thought that could be a good concept. Putting that in the wilderness and then having that system, but it was quite clan dominated, so it probably wouldn't be that great. But PvP worlds, you can 1v1 people, and I kind of wish they had incentive to do like PVM or skilling in PvP worlds. Obviously, there'd have to be like hotspot areas, so it couldn't be abused. You could go to a really remote location and get boost XP or whatever. Maybe not even skilling boost, never mind, because that'd probably be very OP. But maybe like PVM buffs where it's like stuff's noted or whatever if you go in a PvP world would be nice, and that could encourage like people adventuring around. But sorry, that's a complete different tangent. For Bounty Hunter, yeah, the first main thing is it needs to be monitored. If they're going to actually reward players, if you don't reward players, there is no point in having it. If you don't give less abled PKers the chance to make money on their investment of time and killing people, then there's no real point in having it. So you have to have additional EP on top of it and just monitor it for boosting. I feel like it'd be quite easy to monitor it, and maybe you literally just made it so you could only do it in literally north of Edgeville in that one area. So any mods that had to monitor it could literally log in for 5 minutes, run around, see people that are running around in like no items or something, and then just, you know, kind of maybe question what they're doing, or if it's really obvious, just ban them for like 2 days.
Yeah.
Or I feel like it's quite obvious to tell when someone's PKing legitimately and when they're just boosting. And I mean, I had this thought where if you made it so Edgeville PKing Bounty Hunter, it went back to the craters like it was in 2009, and you had a when you entered the crater, you could be attacked by anyone in that crater. However, and you also had like a 30-second time where you could not leave. That would remove a lot of people. First of all, it removed people being able to multi-log because you don't want to focus on like 2, 3, 4 different accounts if they can be attacked by people, because then you might lose any risk you have. You'd have to have a base risk, obviously, to actually make it worthwhile doing. But if you have like a crater where it's very difficult to boost, that might mean they don't have to actually monitor it as much. And it would decentivize a lot of people who would want to kind of take advantage of that boosting. I think that could work, and that's kind of a way for them not to monitor it. But I don't know. 1v1ing is a lot of fun, and having targets and getting additional loot and stuff is a lot of fun, and it makes it more appealing than just running around in PvP worlds. Whether it's needed in the game, I mean, I would say yes. It's one of the, I would say, purest forms of PKing. It's literally you go to wilderness with your gear, you fight another PKer with their gear, and you kind of see what happens. And I don't know, you get rewarded for killing them. I think it's a very nice basic concept, but the rewards need to be monitored. Yeah.
Yep. Um, yeah, I again, like I just am not a PKer, and I've never fully like I don't know what was like good for the game. I know a lot of people want Bounty Hunter back, and like I know the issues with it and that you see, and then like can Iron Man participate in it, because that's just ends up being boosted because there's absolutely no like they. I feel like if they did come back with like a good Bounty Hunter that's going to be monitored, like Iron Man can't do it, but at the same time, there are Iron Man snowflakes that make accounts to PK. but it's
Yep,
like,
me.
yeah, I know. And so it's like, where do you like draw the line? Because like Iron Man, trust me, I've been in Iron Man clans, and like they will literally boost each other. Like they'll go out there and just sit in like an area, like the whole clan will just, well, not the whole clan, but like people will like coordinate, okay, let's go out at this time and let's just boost each other. It's just like, oh my god, like I don't know. And so my eyes with Bounty Hunter comes from Iron Man boosting, because that's all they do, is just boost. It's like there's absolutely 0 point of actually killing somebody because you're not getting any reward. So I see it in the eyes of an Iron Man, where it is just a boosting game.
Okay. I think for Bounty Hunter, it shouldn't really think about Iron Man. Um, and by that I mean, so the rewards of having the rune pouch coming from that obviously made Iron Man want to boost it, right?
Yep.
So maybe just not having a rune pouch coming from it like that, maybe it is so difficult because of boosting, but there will be a way to make it so Iron Men don't go and do it, because it's an easy way of like cheating the system, basically. Um, I think so. When I went on my Iron Man, I did it all legitimately. I did it on my hardcore. I killed, I think, 9 people. I got my tier 1 emblem from Slayer in the wilderness, and then I leveled it up just by killing people. I didn't die, luckily. And I got that achievement. Was there any point in me doing that? No. I should have just gone to the Wilderness Slayer, but I wanted that challenge, you know?
Respect, though. Yeah, that's crazy. That's actually crazy.
I genuinely think I was like one of the only people to actually ever do it legitimately on a hardcore.
Probably.
But yeah, no, it's kind of like I think for Iron, I don't think Jagex, the rewards 100% Jagex needs to take into consideration Iron Man, because you don't want to make it boostable easily for them. But if it really depends, because if you then cater everything in the game to, oh, can an Iron Man abuse this? Then originally when Iron Man came out, they said, look, we're not going to do any update specifically for Iron Man. But now they're going to be considering Iron Man for every update. And I think
Yep.
that's a really dangerous way to go, because at the end of the day, why wouldn't Iron Man be participating in fights where you fight another person to basically obtain their gear? You know, like it basically, that principle of the whole reason of PKing is to get their loot. An Iron Man kind of has no place there. So maybe just making it so Iron Men cannot access that reward shop. That sounds quite harsh saying it. I've not thought about this at all. It might be a terrible idea. But if you made it like that, then Iron Men, they physically cannot go do that. So the meta doesn't change for Iron Man. So then PvP or whatever can actually have proper updates.
No, I agree. That is a good thing. If there are uniques, because there's Iron Man, I'm kind of one of them, where I am sort of a completionist. Not like die-hard completionist, but I still want to be able, because one of the things they had done is, like, I remember when the reward shop came out and then it wasn't accessible to Iron Man, there was like, they took away like key items, like the Ring of Wealth scroll all of a sudden just wasn't obtainable anymore. And so like, if they do that, if they make the reward shop not accessible to Iron Man so that it can be like a pure reward shop for PKers, they need to just come out with like unique rewards that still benefit Irons. They need to come from somewhere else, preferably like another PKing mini game or something, that like LMS or something.
I think when you were talking about Iron Men in the wilderness and not really being able to fight back and stuff, I don't think I've ever thought much into that. I've always thought, well, if an Iron Man wants to go get the items, then they can just go get it. And I mean, yeah, they're not going to really have a chance at fighting back, but they're kind of just doing it for the item, whatever. So I do feel kind of bad, and I think, yeah, maybe limiting the rewards or whatever from Bounty Hunter so they don't feel like they need to go do it would be a good thing. And just making it for kind of I want to say normal players of the game, to incentivize those players, I think it'd be quite a good thing. For the game in general.
Okay, so I have one little topic that I wanted to bring up. I don't know how relevant it is, because yeah, I don't know how much of like Wilderness Slayer you've done and stuff like that. I know I was just watching your stream. You're doing Wilderness Slayer, but like, what do you what do you think of the Amulet of Avarice? So my whole thing is that Amulet of Avarice is garbage. The only use for it is to just skull yourself instantly. But like because the Amulet of Avarice only works in the Wilderness Slayer cave, and I don't think that's enough because the only use to that is literally killing green dragons, which have more health in there, to note their bones if you don't have like the Wilderness Dire, and then note their hides. Do you think, this is my proposal, that the Amulet of Avarice, and just as like in the parentheses, this will not actually do, this is not a significant buff to anything, but do you think the Amulet of Avarice should be able to note everything in the wilderness?
Yes. So Amulet of Avarice, yep, I agree. It is awful. It was funny in Trailblazers. Obviously, just before Trailblazers happened, they moved the Slayer creatures out of the Rev Cave and moved them into their own cave. And I had to tweet saying, "Yo, guys, can you make the Amulet of Avarice actually work in that Slayer cave? Because right now it was only usable in the Rev Cave, and
it made
that
no
meant
sense.
nothing.
And everything was noted already. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, that to me kind of shows how maybe little thought it goes into PvP updates.
Out of
it's
touch.
Like,
yep.
yeah, we have to ask for that. And yeah, I agree. You know what? If they did that, the Amulet of Avarice actually becomes useful in the Wilderness Resource Arena. You can go mine a bunch of added ore and then hop worlds, and then provided you either have a lot of money or whatever, yeah, you can just like camp a world and get loads of resources. You know, it kind of makes that more useful. 100% think that amulet needs to be a lot more useful. It's the same with the scepter. The scepter's absolutely awful.
What do you propose for the scepter? I'm curious.
Like, so for the scepter, I have no idea. I haven't really thought about it. You could potentially, didn't they add something recently which increased the rate of spec going up or something? Or was that polled or something? Or was I dreaming that?
I'm trying to think. That sounds familiar. The reason it sounds familiar is because I actually had an idea I've been pushing on my stream of coming out with like a Raids 3 item called the Ring of Spec, or like a Spec ring that actually rejuvenates your spec faster, but you couldn't wear like a Berserker ring. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's something coming out like that.
Yeah, maybe like adding it so the spec regens twice as fast when you're wearing it, and you can't switch between or whatever. You have to actually be wearing it because for hybriding and stuff, that would encourage a lot more people to use it, and yeah, it'd just be nice.
True. So it could actually be used for PvP. Like the other weapons aren't used for PvP; they're just used for PVM.
Yeah, but to be fair, the other weapons are used for PVM, but they're used for PVM in the wilderness, which I do like.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I don't have any other topics. Do you have anything you'd like to address, or just anything that you're kind of
I've got a meme comment.
Okay.
Manic Marauder 7 said, "Make sure you ask him about his RNG mace grind."
Wait, what? You're asking me, right? Or
yep.
shit.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. No.
Okay, we don't talk about that.
No. I've been dry on the Nightmare Mace, and I'm like 1.5 times right now, which isn't even that bad, but Nightmare is a pain in the ass. I don't know if you've ever done it.
I've seen videos and I've heard it's in all honesty, okay. Again, you probably might hate me for this, but I really like the Nightmare drop like table. I also really like the God Wars drop table. I personally feel that if the main reward is a unique and the rest of the loot is kind of like meh, I think that's really good, just for the game in general, because stuff like Zulrah and Vorkath just like pumping out GP, it just means it's so low risk. It's the whole risk versus reward thing. It's like God Wars, the risk isn't necessarily losing money. The risk is spending a lot of time and not actually making any money, right? And I really like that concept, and I think that's why pre-OC it kind of worked, where you would the end game was PKing, because yeah, you could go to God Wars and make, like, you could get tassis
lucky,
every
yeah.
other day. Yeah, exactly. I really like the whole get lucky concept, as opposed to, yep, you're guaranteed profit every 3-minute kills or whatever.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you. I am completely in the same boat as you. I think I am actually so into what you just said that my proposal in the past has been delete every non-unique reward from Zora and make it so it only drops scales and its uniques. That's it. So it's like literally a fucking grind. The difference with Nightmare is, like, unlike a blowpipe where you could legitimately grind out a blowpipe in like 3 days going ham, or like even 2 days if you just did Zora all day, Nightmare is like, a mace is like a 500-hour grind, and like an orb is like a 700-hour grind, where it's just like, it's like you are actually losing money, especially if you do it my way where you're using a scythe. You are like literally losing like 500,000 GP every kill unless you get the item, which honestly is cool, but like, I'm actually okay with that, with you losing money until you get a big, huge item and it's actually worth a lot. But like, God, 500 hours for something that's like the equivalent of a rapier or a blade of Saeldor is just like ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's super extreme, and
it's tedious as hell.
Maybe not having it always that rare, yeah, because that would be awful. I remember grinding on my Iron Man. I was doing raids because I was PKing. I wanted Dragon Claws, I wanted Rigor, I wanted Augury. I luckily got them all within like 200 KC, but I couldn't imagine having to grind them for longer, you know.
Yep, going dry at all is just like horrible. But yeah. No, I mean, I've had my luck. I got a 20 KC Tebow on my Iron Man. Like, I've had my luck streaks, but like I've also had the other places where I just go super dry.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So PvP, what how do I word this? What do you think it would take to encourage you to do PvP?
Well, like you said, there's just players that will not like PvP. I like PvP, and in fact, if Ironman mode had never come out, I think my experience in the wilderness, even though it was toxic as fuck, and there's a lot of people that just like, I know every community has toxic people. I know that, like, first-handedly, but like the simple fact that PvP is literally killing another player, it just inherently makes it a little bit more toxic than every other community. But I will say, it would be kind of neat if theoretically Iron Man mode had never come out, I probably actually would have gotten into PvP, because it is more of a living thing. It's like really dynamic, unlike just PVMing all day. But I have just seen the beauty of Iron Man and my personality and my just who I am. Iron Man is just so good. Like, I love doing things on my own. I love constant progression. But I still understand the PKing thing. Like, I've even seen, people that are just dedicated PKers, like, all they do is spend all their time in the wilderness, and it's almost like its own little world. It's like its own little ecosystem, sort of its own little world, and relationships matter. You want to be on good terms with people because they can actually just ruin your fucking day. So it's like, it still is appealing to me, but I will never get into PKing simply because Iron Man doesn't allow it. Basically, just as a principle, you can't benefit from PKing as an Iron Man, and the way I play just will never take me there.
No, that's fair. A funny thing about the toxicity within PvP. Typically, if you're getting flamed by someone, it is typically because they're a noob. I would say most good PKs don't flame. Only the noobs that flame. Only the people that flame are noobs, because the way I see it, they rarely actually get kills. So if they do kill you, that'll be like the one time
all
they
the
can actually
bottled
be like,
up, all the bottled up
exactly.
emotions.
Yeah, so if you ever get flamed in the wilderness, just remember that guy's probably a noob, and it's probably his first kill in the last like month. So just you can kind of laugh at them basically because of that. And also, there's it's very funny whenever I hear like PvP super toxic. Whenever I PK, I would say the majority of the time I don't experience that much toxicity in PvP. I get flamed so much by Iron Men in the wilderness that I'm
Oh,
attacking,
they're
or
awful.
normal.
We're
Yeah,
awful.
I've probably I 100% understand there's clans that take flaming like to a whole new level that's just ridiculous, but in terms of like individuals, I've never been flamed so much by Iron Men and normal people that I've been killing. And I get it, it's annoying, but it kind of makes sense why people then start flaming who they're killing, because let's say just before I attack you, I get some Iron Man going, "You're an idiot. You're never gonna kill me. You suck." Like, and then I kill you. The next kill, it's like
You got a
I
flame.
guess, yeah. I think they're like talking to the person that just flamed them a bunch and getting that like frustration out, I guess. But yeah, I don't agree with the whole flaming and all that. I've never been a flame gamer. The only time I ever flame is if someone flames me first, because typically people flame, and again, people who flame are generally newbie or just not very good at the game, and they die a lot, man. The people who flame are the ones who die typically. So it's always funny saying
Nah,
goodbye or whatever.
like, so Ironmen are extremely emotional in the wilderness, and
Yeah,
I've been a part of that where I feel just like I am at the worst disadvantage. I am like the lowest of lows right now. Even if
yeah,
I were to kill you, you can just run back and reclaim your shit. No harm done to you. And like you just feel like you're being taken advantage of. Not like if a PKer is attacking you, you just cannot do anything. You just have to accept it. And so people bottle up these emotions and just freak out, have like episodes of them just freaking out because there is nothing they can do. They can't defend themselves hardly. They're
yeah,
Iron Men, where it's like they have limited gear, most likely. They're on their last fucking prayer pots because they have to make their own. It's just like they're in this emotional state. And what's funny is like it also comes down to PVM. So they're planning on separating God Wars for like Iron Man and mains. So they're just completely separating the whole way. So it's just like a
yeah,
complete instance for irons. Um, and it sucks for irons there too, because if a main wants to come in, the main has all the advantage. Like they will still get the drop. Iron Man, if a main goes in there and tanks a hit, the Iron Man is fucked over, and
yeah.
it's just like horrible. And so what's funny is that because I've been doing Nightmare recently, um, now it's like almost like the roles have reversed, where it's like I can almost be the one that crashes. And it is, oh my God, it is satisfying to see a main just crying that they're being crashed, because it's just like the turntables have finally fucking turned, or it's like
Yeah,
all the oppression you've experienced, and it's just like, oh, it's like I finally have a balanced level playing field where I can just, and it's not even technically crashing. It's somebody waiting outside of a world for their team, and you go in there first, and they just start crying about it. And
yeah.
so, and it sucks either way. If somebody were to do that to me, I'd be pissed off. It's just the way the game is. It's an MMO. So, but I understand Iron Men are the biggest crybabies, but for good reason.
Yeah, it does make sense when you explain it like that. It's like, yeah, no, to be fair, they have no way of actually defending themselves. And I yeah, I don't. If someone flames you, I'm kind of just like, yeah, fair enough. I'm trying to kill you, so
Yeah.
fair play. I'm not going to take it personally. And I remember when I was like bursting on my Iron Man, and someone would crash me, I'd just be like, fine, I'll just hop. But yeah, I
Yeah.
get it is super frustrating, and yeah, maybe that's the fault of Jagex for introducing Iron Man mode, and making the MMORPG a solo player game. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I think overall for PvP, they just need to give it proper updates. Because I just want to go back to the first thing I said. Um, just imagine trying to play the game as a PVMer, and your only content was God Wars and Barrows. There was no raids, there was no Theatre of Blood, like there was none of that. And then imagine um just being upset with it. And because a lot of us PvPers, we say, come on, Jags, we need actual updates. And everyone says, well, your community's tiny. Why do you need updates? There's like none of you playing. And it's like, well, again, imagine if you were in our situation, you'd had
Yep.
no updates for 7 or 8 years. That's why the community is so small. We haven't been given any love. And that's why, yeah, we want some love finally, you know. And I'm hoping Jagex give us some love, and they actually give us some updates, and it kind of proves like, oh, maybe there is a point in investing in PvP. Because yeah, it's not been fun having the same content for the last 7 years and basically just being ignored, you know.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that that you were able to come on here and like give like with I'm just glad I've heard your perspective now, because you have been an avid PKer for like over a decade, you know.
Yeah.
And like we tend to like, I mean, I guess every community kind of sort of tends to circle jerk around themselves and just be like, yeah, PKers suck, whatever, and then PKers like PVMers suck, you know. So, but it's nice to kind of collaborate, because I think in the end we all love RuneScape. We all have
Yeah.
the reasons we play it, and like we really should try to make the game as healthy as possible, and also just like, because honestly, I think PKing is totally essential to the game. I absolutely think that. And yeah, I do agree they need updates. I have my own selfish reasons, just like any other player would have their own things that they want in the game that would probably not be terribly healthy, but it would benefit them and give them a lot of fun. But yeah. But Manked, thank you so much for being on here. It was a pleasure.
No problem. It's been great, man. I always, whenever I talk about PvP on stream, I always get really excited to talk about it, but then it always makes me really depressed because I realize how little love we've been given, and yeah. But no, it was nice talking to you, and yeah, it was cool to get other perspectives on stuff.
Yeah.
I really.
Well, guys, I'm going to have all of Manked's socials in the description of this video. So his Twitch, his Twitter, and YouTube, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Perfect.
And if there's anything else, I mean, I'll talk to Manked right after this and see if there's anything else. But yeah, that was refreshing, I should say, talking to somebody that doesn't even play the same way I do, and it's good to hear some different points. So, Mank, thank you very much. And yeah, next Sae Bae Cast, not exactly sure who the next guest will be yet, but I do plan to get either Thurko or try to convince a cold one to be on here. So back to my roots. But this was actually really nice, Manked, and I'll probably in a year from now's time probably get you on to see how the game's progressed or whatever, and see if there's anything new to add. But thank you so much, man.
Yeah, cheers for having me, mate. I appreciate it a lot.
All right.
It's been great.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.